Welcome back to Sacred Healing and Enchantment. This is your podcast for deep dive healing, embodied leadership, and sacred connection. Whether you are a coach, a leader, or a healer, or a seeker, each episode will provide you with personal and professional guidance and inspiration to help you weave more magic into your journey. My name is Melanie Monaco, and I'm a priestess and mentor. I created the first ever self-love coach certification program, and I've made over $1 million in my business through courses, workshops, retreats, and more. And today I am so excited to be here with my daughter Luna Bell. You'll probably hear her cooing in the background. Hopefully she stays asleep the whole time. And we are going to be talking about boundaries, triggers, and how to hold discernment when boundaries are necessary or when they're actually in avoidance. And we're going to be talking about how to curate your nervous system to help you not only set and uphold boundaries, but to hold a greater capacity for discomfort and tolerance so that you aren't unnecessarily setting boundaries as an act of avoidance. Boundaries have become such a hot topic in personal development for good reason, because many of us, especially women, are conditioned to be people pleasing. We might have the fawn response, which is a trauma response that goes into people pleasing as a protection mechanism. And we've been told to be good, be kind, don't ruffle feathers, don't create conflict. And conflict is really hard and messy and can be scary and confronting. And so many of us go into a place of smiling, even if we are inside falling apart. And boundaries do offer a pathway to reclaiming responsibility in relationships about where you are allowing people in. And early on in my coaching career, I would often say boundaries aren't about keeping people out, they're about keeping the best part of you in. So if a part of you is coming out in relationships that you don't love, that you're not proud of, where you are being more snippy or where you're being a bit more resentful than you want to be, or you're being more reactive than you want to be, then a really responsible thing to do is to set a boundary so that you are keeping the best parts of you in and you're able to show up in that relationship with more integrity and alignment. And that's something that I definitely learned in relationships. And as my practice as a coach and who I'm supporting has evolved, I've seen different ways that boundaries are being misused. And there's this ideology of like anything that's toxic, set a boundary. If anybody disrespects you, set a boundary. Don't be afraid to cut people off completely if they disrespect you. And to give you a little bit of a backstory, without sharing more than I think is in integrity to share, I've had my own personal experience with family members, with friends, where I've both set boundaries and had boundaries set against me or set within relationship to me. And I have cut people off, and I have had people not necessarily cut me off, not to my knowledge, but definitely distance themselves. So I've been on the receiving end and I've been on the giving end of this. And I've seen boundaries misused in a few different ways. And I share this too to let you know that like wherever you're at in your journey of really what is at the core of this is navigating relational conflict, right? And understanding your capacity for repair and others' capacities for repair. And wherever you're at in the journey, there's no shame. Like some of us may have greater capacity for conflict than others. And some of that has to do with our trauma responses. If you are somebody who has done a lot of work to navigate healing your nervous system, then you might have greater capacity than somebody who's just starting out, and holding awareness of that and compassion and empathy for that, I think is really, really key. So wherever you're at, wherever other people are at, we're approaching this conversation from a place of of awareness and understanding that everybody is in their own journey, right? All right, first I want to bring our awareness to the difference between something that's, quote, toxic and something that's uncomfortable. And I actually witnessed this in a group dynamic this last year where some folks in the group, and this was like a healing group, some folks in the group were calling other folks toxic. And the folks that were being called toxic were definitely showing up with repetitive behaviors of unhealed wounds that were causing other people to feel perhaps like the vibe was being brought down. And the word toxic in that circumstance was really saying like these folks who are showing up with these unhealed wound patterns are annoying, are uncomfortable, are bringing the vibe down. But toxic in definition, in the way that I would define it, is something that chronically harms, manipulates, violates consent, or refuses accountability, which was not any of those things that were happening. So what was actually happening was that people in this group were made to feel uncomfortable, right? And so feeling uncomfortable is a behavior that challenges your own unhealed wounds, a behavior that brings you to the threshold of your own comfortability. And it can be an invitation to either set a boundary, which is some of what happened in this group dynamic where some folks just bowed out, or it can be an invitation to create more capacity for discomfort, which is one of the greatest gifts and one of the most valuable invitations to say yes to on the healing journey. Saying yes to inviting in discomfort and expanding your capacity for discomfort. And I just had, if you've listened to some of my birth related episodes, you might have heard this, but I just had the most physical version of this for each contraction in which I was birthing my daughter, which were so intense. So I mean, she's nearly 10-pound baby. This was an intense birth. Like my contractions with her were way more intense than my 7-pound baby. But with each contraction, when I would feel myself starting to resist, I would vocalize yes. That is medicine from this birth that I will continue to carry with me, and it's medicine that I want to offer to you. So holding discernment when something is toxic versus uncomfortable. And if something is toxic, then often what happens is you're going to notice that there isn't going to be a capacity or an easy ability towards repair. Repair is the key here, the ability to repair. And a lot of the ability to repair requires both people or all parties involved to hold accountability of their part in the equation and to be able to hold humility, to admit when you've been wrong, to admit where you can do greater work, and to show up with real empathy. Everybody's doing the best they can with the capacity, information, and knowledge that they have. So if you're showing up in relationship that you're deeming toxic, then the question you want to ask is this person willing and capable of true repair? What does true repair look like and feel like? It will depend on the circumstance, but all of the things that I said, right? Holding the capacity to admit when you're wrong and holding the capacity to do better. And sometimes in real toxic relationships, somebody will then like love bomb you with apologies. Oh, I'm so sorry. I promise I'll do better. But then they don't do better, right? So knowing that actions are just as important as words in these circumstances. Repair can be messy and can be complicated, but so many of us will shy away from it and will instead just smack up a boundary. And I've been on the receiving end of this where the boundary isn't even communicated. Like I've done something that has offended someone and then they distance themselves and don't say why. This has happened a couple of different times. And then later on, we're like, well, I put up a boundary because of this thing that happened. And I'm like, well, I wish you would have told me in the moment so that I could have repaired. And in those circumstances, what I have received or what I have gleaned from that is that the people who put up the boundary were not, first of all, trusting of my ability to say sorry or admit that I was wrong, or weren't interested in an apology, or weren't interested in repair. Two, were afraid of the confrontation that requires. And so one thing that I have been really conscious of doing in relationships since learning through those circumstances is to let people know that I am always willing to admit fault and apologize and repair, to let people know. And this is something I work so hard on doing as a professional as well. Like, I'm a safe space. I say this at the beginning of all of my containers, my courses. Like, if I do something that offends you, please tell me, and please know that I will believe you and I will take you seriously, and I will never invalidate you or make you feel like you're wrong. And I say that to my clients, and I realized, oh, I could say that to my friends or to people in my life too. And so that's something that I want to invite you into awareness of, right? If one way to help repair happen more easily on both sides is to let people know that you are a safe person to bring issues to, because not everybody is safe. There are so many people who do not know how to repair, do not know how to hold accountability, who feel that at the slightest amount of, hey, ouch, what you did hurt me, is a criticism on who they are. But actually, it's just like, hey, this behavior hurt me. Not you, it's not you as a person that's wrong. It's this behavior that hurt me, right? And not everybody is able to hold the difference between those two things when it's coming at them. And so for repair, whether you are receiving the like, hey, you did something that hurt me, or you're sharing with somebody else that they hurt you, make it clear that it's not you. It's not the person. I don't believe that. I mean, I'm sure bad people exist, but I believe like most people who are doing bad things aren't bad people. They're unhealed wounds that are coming out sideways, which is why self-love is such a powerful and important tool for healing, because it brings love to the unloved parts of us so we can show up with greater awareness of ourselves and how we may be impacting others. I hope that all this thus far is helpful to you. So holding discernment, whether something is toxic, whether something is uncomfortable. And then if something is uncomfortable and you want to expand your capacity in this relationship, you want to expand your capacity for repair and navigating challenging circumstances. The lens through which you can view this is actually through nervous system regulation. A lot of the folks in my community or people that I've worked with recently, nervous system regulation is such a hot topic too. And people will be like, well, I just don't think I'm healed enough or quote spiritual enough because I completely lose my cool when this thing happens, or I continue to snap when this other thing happens, and I'm just not like chill all the time, or I'm not like peaceful all the time. And one thing that I have learned from other practitioners in this field is like, the goal is not having a calm demeanor and to be peaceful 100% of the time. It's to be able to react authentically, but then bring yourself into alignment quicker. The more that you heal and the more that you move through life, because it's so unrealistic and totally unhuman, like to imagine that you're going to be chill or peaceful or like grounded 100% of the time. It's not going to happen. So can the goal instead be to hold enough self-awareness to feel when you're getting reactive, to respond to the reactivity with a pause long enough to discern how to get back into alignment with self? And sometimes it feels so good to actually be what would, I think, feel out of alignment for some people, but to actually be in those emotions. We have to feel our emotions through us to move them out of us. We can't just suppress our emotions trying to be chill all the time. It can feel really good to be in anger. Sacred rage is a powerful tool that we see in beautiful deities around the world and archetypes around the world, like Pele, the goddess of volcanoes, or Kali Ma. Like we see these archetypes of especially feminine sacred rage, but even the god Mars, right? Like of war. Like we see this again and again as a sacred emotion. And as long as it is treated with reverence and respect and held in a way that does not cause harm, I think it can feel really good to be in it. And so you don't have to be chill or peaceful all the time. You can be reactive. You can allow yourself to feel all of the uncomfortable emotions, and actually feeling them will allow them to pass through you a bit more efficiently so that you're able to receive the medicine you're meant to receive from them. Because when you feel angry towards someone else, that is a signal that something is off. And what is off? Is it coming from them or is it coming from you? What is your part in this? What is their part in this? And what is required for recalibration? Often, if we are not used to or not interested in or don't have the muscle memory of moving in and out of these heightened emotional, uncomfortable emotional spaces, we will think that everything that activates us is toxic. So the mantra you can repeat to yourself if you're moving in this journey is, not everything that activates me is toxic. Sometimes it's my invitation to grow capacity. The question I want you to ask yourself as you're musing through this with me is, how can I tell the difference between just normal dysregulation versus a situation actually being unsafe? Because the word triggers, and I'm using it colloquially, but actually a trigger, psychologically speaking, is a flashback where your nervous system is reliving a past traumatic experience. But we colloquially will say triggers are like things that just make us uncomfortable. So how can I tell if I'm just triggered because I'm uncomfortable because I don't like how this is making me feel versus this is actually unsafe? And knowing the difference is really important. And that will help you hold discernment on when and what kind of boundary to set. But your triggers are often teachers, and you can utilize that information as a deeper invitation into healing, right? If you're continually triggered by this certain circumstances or certain people, and I mean triggered colloquially, then you're like, great, now I know where I can focus on in my shadow work and my healing journey. I'm going to bet that most of you listening to this have already navigated setting boundaries and have already started to understand like what boundary setting looks like in personal relationships, and even in activities you might do, even in the way that you treat yourself, right? A healthy boundary might be limiting the time that you are scrolling on social media and engaging in unhealthy coping mechanisms. A healthy boundary might look like, if you have a relationship that continually triggers you and the other person is not going to change, or you don't think that it's worth getting into any major avenue of repair, or you've tried to repair and their behavior doesn't change, right? Then holding time boundaries in that relationship can be really valuable and helpful. Again, going back to like, how can you show up as the best version of yourself in this relationship? And does that look like holding the deep vulnerability of like, hey, I am noticing I feel this way when this situation occurs. What are you noticing? And like the way that even just that phrasing is so different than when you do this, it's da 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 da, like bringing it into a question of like, are you noticing that in these circumstances, like when we do this thing that I get really on edge? Have you noticed that? Or like, how do you feel when we do this thing? Or how do you feel in this circumstance? Inviting it from a place of curiosity is a much more helpful way of navigating repair and conflict than coming at people like, you did this thing, da-da-da-da. And you can hold the same curiosity for yourself, right? Like, how can we approach any of this with less blame, more curiosity? The same ideology about the nervous system of like, you don't have to be peaceful all the time. You can allow yourself to oscillate through all of your different experiences and feelings. And a solid nervous system is one that is flexible and is not in hyperarousal, meaning is not in constant fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, and is actually able to come back to a grounded place after experiencing any of those trauma response states of being. And the same thing applies to relationships. It doesn't have to be good and easy all the time. It doesn't have to be peaceful all the time. Some relationships like are really most of the time very easy and very peaceful. Some might not be, but can you still view it as worthwhile? Can you still view it as good if there is the ability to repair and come back to alignment without betraying yourself or without other people betraying themselves? And if you in that relationship can't get into a place where you're able to be in a place of self-respect, if you're not able to be in a place where you are honored and seen in your full capacity, if you're not able to repair truly, then yeah, that's the opportunity for looking at boundaries. But you don't have to view the relationship itself as toxic or bad if it's not like actually causing you intentional harm. And if the other person isn't willing to do the work of real repair, then you can still find peace in the relationship through knowing that you are doing your part and you are holding your boundaries with how you want to show up. All of this is to say a solid nervous system and a solid relationship both share the same quality. It's not something that never shakes or never comes out of alignment. It's one that always knows how to come home. If you are interested in learning how to expand your ability to hold discomfort, then I would encourage you deeper into shadow work. A really easy way to get started in that is through ritual ceremony and the way that I do it in my guided rituals membership, which is $7 a month. It's a super easy invitation. It's an app, so you can download it on your phone. And all of those rituals and ceremonies in there provide an opportunity for you to cultivate more self-awareness and to cultivate greater capacity through regulating your body, through breath work, through energy work. And when your body feels safe, it's much easier for your mind to have clarity, and it's much easier to feel more connected to your self energy, to your authenticity, so that you're showing up with greater integrity in your relationships. So I would love to invite you into the Guided Rituals membership. And if you're somebody who's really curious about what all of this shadow work looks like on a greater level and really confronting your triggers, then the Sacred Method shadow work practitioner training and soul retrieval training is something that you might be interested in, and you can join the wait list for that. I'm planning to reopen enrollment in 2026, so you can keep an eye out for that, but I would definitely encourage you to look at the website. I'll put it in the show notes, and potentially join the wait list for that, because that container is definitely an invitation to learning how to deal with confrontation because of what you're confronted in within yourself, but in the best way. It's exactly like the medicine that I brought from Luna Bell's birth of saying yes to the pressure. Like, diamonds are created under extreme pressure. This is your invitation to polish your inner diamond and shine through putting yourself into the circumstance of not like, it doesn't have to be this horrible, like challenging, painful thing, but it really is just putting yourself into the circumstance of deep healing in the way that so many of our ancestors have done through vision quests and intentional, intense ceremonies, like going out into the woods by yourself for days on end without food or water. It is quite an intense invitation and circumstance to do in the name of spiritual evolution. And so this container is my gentle and modern take on facilitating that type of spiritual evolution for people. So it's something to look into if you want to say yes to the pressure of an expanded and accelerated healing journey. Definitely for folks who are not brand new to the work, I would say, who are further along, and have done some emotional healing work already. And perhaps are already practitioners in some capacity. So I would love to invite you into that. But if you're just starting out or wherever you're at in your journey and you want to cultivate your own resilience in holding capacity for conflict and repair and holding capacity for nervous system regulation, the Guided Rituals membership is where it's at. And again, it's just $7 a month. Super easy to bring into your life. And there's over 150 rituals in there that will give you an opportunity to heal through anything life throws your way. I would love to hear your thoughts on this episode and anything that it sparked for you and within you. So you can send me a message on my Instagram at Melanie Rose Monaco. I'll put that in the show notes. You can also, depending on where you're listening to this, comment. You can also send me an email at melanie@melaniemonaco.com. And you can find all of my offerings and more on my website at melaniemonaco.com. And I'll link the Guided Rituals membership and the Sacred Method in the show notes. I'm so excited to see you soon for another episode. Please feel free to reach out and let me know what you want to hear about next. Have a beautiful rest of your day. I'm sending you on your way with so much magic and so much love.